Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Job Acquisition Workshop. Let's get this party started. Who this presentation's for? This is for you if you're ambitious, if you're tired of the status quo, if you're upset and frustrated with a very painful job search process. We're actually going to change and reframe how you think about the job search. It's no longer going to be a job search. You are going to take proactive ownership of your career and your job search. And also, if you believe that this is a learnable skill, and I will tell you why, acquiring jobs, landing a great job, earning more interviews, offers, and money are all learnable skills that you will leave here tonight knowing, or in the day, because I know we have some folks in Asia as well, and it's Wednesday there at your time. So before we go further, I want to warn you that what you will hear tonight is different than a lot of the stuff that you will hear on LinkedIn. A lot of this stuff is inside information from my years of experience, from my years of being hired, being interviewed, and interviewing people. So you'll hear some things that may not seem to make logical sense, but I'll explain to you why it does. And when you look on LinkedIn, if you look for career coaches, you will find 135,000 career coaches out there. Anybody can call themselves a career coach, and anybody can spew snake oil. I will not be spewing or selling or pushing any snake oil here. I'm not going to tell you to write a cover letter. I'm not going to tell you to write a resume, nor charge you to write a resume. I am not going to tell you to pack your resume or your LinkedIn profile with keywords that the ATS is magically going to find. For people that don't know what the ATS is, it stands for Application Tracking Software. It is one of the most overestimated and misunderstood pieces of software out there. What you will learn tonight is that job acquisition is a learnable skill. So the picture that you see here is a picture from me back in 2017. When I joined Facebook, they flew me and about 200 other noobs. That's what they called rookies or new people at Facebook. They flew me and about 200 people around the world to Menlo Park, California, where Facebook headquarters are now. And not only did they fly us all out there, which was quite lavish and generous of them, but they brought in an amazing speaker, Carol Dweck. And Carol Dweck spoke to me and the 200 other people there about the growth mindset. They didn't just bring her in. Mark Zuckerberg was there, Sheryl Sandberg was there, lots of other pomp and circumstance for all these noobs that were drinking the Kool-Aid at Facebook at the time. Carol Dweck talked about mindset, and there are two different ways to think about mindset. You can have a mindset that is fixed, so all the skills and information and talent that I have is here and fixed, or you can think about your skills and information and abilities as growable and learnable. And that's how I like to think about job acquisition. And the reason why I can say that is, even though I've had a fairly successful career over the course of 25 years or so, I started off in relatively humble beginnings. What you see there, and I have right here as well, is a change maker that my grandpa Stanley had in his only job, I think, as a cab driver in New York. He never went to college. My parents never went to college. My mom actually wound up going back to college and graduating the same year I did. But I was a first generation college student in my family. I went to public university. What you see here is an article from 1991 or two, when I was in college, when people were up in arms when we were raising tuition from the price of $21.50 to $26.50 at Binghamton University. I started from relatively humble beginnings. I went to a school that most people have not heard of. I'm Binghamton proud, but not a lot of people have heard of Binghamton. But from my humble beginnings, I learned and grew my career over the last 25 years. And over that time, I have held 29 different jobs at 21 different companies, working for 38 different leaders. And I learned that all companies do not treat you well, or all companies do not treat you the same. All companies do not treat you well also. I learned that. And all jobs are not created equal. But there are ways that you can learn and grow and not only accelerate your career, but accelerate your compensation. And not that compensation is the only thing to measure your career on. Without any other metric, compensation is something that is a fairly calibrated thing. And I'm not showing this slide here to brag about the compensation that I made, but more to show what you can learn to make, earn, grow, and control your career. However, the job search sucks. You will be submitting your resume and getting ghosted, not getting a response. You will be interviewing for jobs that you are perfectly qualified for, and you will get negged. You will get to the final rounds. They will be flying you on site to a job, and you may still get rejected. You may be losing out to people that are less qualified than you just because they are the CEO's son. That's happened to me before. Not the CEO's son, but the CEO's nephew. Instead of the job search, I like to reframe this and no longer consider it a search or a job hunt, but instead you are here to acquire a job. You are here to acquire a better job with more opportunity, a higher career trajectory, and more compensation. So if you refocus and reframe, you can own and you can manage your destiny. And before we go further, I always get this question, so I want to answer this out front. What I'm going to share with you today works around the globe. I've managed people across 6 different continents. These are the type of clients that we've worked with. We just actually got a new client from Singapore yesterday. And this stuff works in every country, in every land. And this also works at every stage of your career. It works if you're a senior in college up to senior level executives. I have been looking for jobs since I was 14 years old, and the process is essentially the same. There's little tweaks at some different companies, little idiosyncrasies, but essentially what I'm going to teach you here tonight will apply no matter what level you are, no matter what country you're in, and also whatever industry and function you are in. This stuff works across healthcare, across pharma, across financial services, across tech. I will talk a lot about tech today because frankly, a lot of people like tech and appreciate tech, but this works all across industries and sectors. Now the good stuff is starting. Job acquisition begins now. This picture I love. This is right in my backyard in Coney Island in Brooklyn on the Coney Island Cyclone. It's a very scary roller coaster, not because of the steep drops, but it's a damn old roller coaster, a wood roller coaster that's a little creaky. But the job acquisition will get you here safe and sound. Before we do this, I like to give away things, and we're giving away $1,000 of goodies. So as you go through this presentation tonight, as you go through this interactive workshop, if you see something that is new, that is enlightening, that gives you a new perspective, or you see a slide that is particularly interesting or engaging, take a picture, jot down a note, and post on LinkedIn something new that you learned. And if you tag me on that on LinkedIn, and you tag Own Your Career, then you will be entered in to win one of 5 free LinkedIn profile reviews. I'll reach out to you and I will review your profile. I'll give you specific feedback on how to improve that. And anyone who posts will be eligible for one of these 5 LinkedIn profile makeover reviews. And this is going to be interactive. So not only can you post some stuff on LinkedIn, but what I'd like you to do now, take out your cell phone or go to your computer and type in this very easy URL to type in bit.ly/interactive-worksheet. Or if you have your cell phone, just take a screenshot of that QR code. This worksheet will be critical to go through because what we're going to do tonight is I'm going to ask you some questions. We're going to help diagnose what might be your challenges, and we're going to send you a copy of your responses after as well. So do the QR code, and we're going to start with these first 5 questions. As you're filling out these 5 questions, I'm going to share a story about someone who recently succeeded with Kadima. So Brittany, amazing copywriter, amazing content creator. She lives in Atlanta, Georgia. She came to me when she was working at Georgia Pacific. She was frustrated that she was earning below 6 figures. She was earning around $75,000 or so, but she wanted to get into big tech. So we worked together. put together a plan in place. She wanted to get into the FANGs, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, but she wasn't able to get there right away. But within 3 months, she was able to get into Supernatural, which actually wound up being acquired by Facebook or by Meta. But she was not so happy there, and it was not the best situation. Also, when she got there, as soon as she updated her LinkedIn profile, all of a sudden other companies began sniffing around and saying, "Ooh, this woman, Brittany, looks pretty impressive." Apple came calling. She talked to me. She was hesitant to apply. She's like, "Oh, I just started Supernatural." I encouraged her to apply. She wound up getting interviewed. She passed those interviews and is now earning 2.2 times more than what she was making in Georgia Pacific in less than 6 months' time. That's about Brittany. Now let's talk a little bit about you. The first question, and these questions are specifically designed in order, and please don't go ahead in the worksheet. It will be more effective if you kind of follow our pace here. But this first question, how much money do you want to make in your new job? And I'll talk to you why this is an important question later on, but without prompting you, put in what you want to make. Ideally, put in US dollars. And I think you have to put a number in here. I think we have some data validation that actually has to be a full number here. So put that in. There's no right or wrong answer. This is just asking you personally what you're looking to earn. Now we're going to get into the job acquisition method. And the first component is clarifying your goals. I don't know if anyone's heard of Stephen Covey, who wrote the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I think that's what 7 Habits of Highly Effective. Yeah, I think it's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. His first habit that he says are aligned with highly effective people is to be proactive. So everybody here, the hundreds of people that are here in this workshop right now, are being proactive with your career. Good job. The second habit is to start with the end in mind, or to know where you're headed and identify those goals. And we're going to work on clarifying some goals here tonight. I can't tell you what your goals are. These are all personal to you in terms of your values, what's important to you, maybe location, maybe work-life balance, maybe compensation. This is all up to you. I can't tell you what's important to you, but you can identify what are important to you. So in this question 7, now think back either things that are on this sheet, on this slide here, or in your mind. What is important to you in your next job? Jot them down here or type them in here. And now that you did that, we're going to do a little bit more clarification with your goals. So if you want a good work-life balance, or you want a good career growth, or you want to work in Dallas or whatever, now you need to start identifying the companies and the organizations that can align and help you achieve those goals. So I always recommend, not only do I recommend this, but I learned this in business school for my $138,000 that I invested in my MBA. I'm not saying that to brag. You do not need to invest $138,000 to know that you should start with a target list of companies, ideally 40 deep. I'm not going to ask you right now to identify those 40 companies, but I'll give you some pointers of how you should think about those companies. This slide here shows a median compensation at Fortune 500 companies. Actually, it's not even Fortune 500 companies, it's public companies. So you can choose to be a product manager at American Express, and the median compensation at American Express is $67,000. Or you can choose to be a product manager at Meta, and the median compensation there is $293,000. So if you're choosing to become a product manager or a sales professional or customer success or operations or finance or marketing, you name the profession, choose a company that's going to pay you what you're worth. And what you see here, and for people that do not remember Stats 101 or never took stats, this is median. So to give a little bit of clarity to what median means, at Google has almost 180,000 employees, and this is after the 12,000 that they cut recently. There are currently almost 2,000 roles at Google. If we are to assume that only 25% of those roles are at the median or higher at $298,000, those are 500 potential lottery tickets that are paying you an annuity of about $300,000 a year. And if you think about Google, That means that there's 90,000 people, more people that can fit in MetLife Stadium, the home of my sorry New York Giants. I'm not sorry that they're the New York Giants. I'm sorry that I'm a fan of the New York Giants and they're just been in some sorry state. But more people than they can fit in MetLife Stadium earn north of $300,000 at Google. So when you're thinking about the company that you want to work for, I'm not saying to look at Google or to look at ServiceNow or to look at NVIDIA. If you want to earn a lot of money, you may want to think like that. Other people like to think about startups. One of my 21 jobs I had was in venture capital. When I worked in venture capital for the 2.5 years, we were taught an adage that's very common in venture capital, the rule of a third. A third of companies will return the value of the fund. A third will essentially break even for the fund. And a third will go belly up, go bankrupt. Only in 1/3 of those cases where you have a great exit will you as an employee really benefit from that equity and those options. So only in 1/3 of those cases will you really achieve all those promises of that equity. So be careful and mindful as you think about startups. And that is why I encourage people to shoot for the moon. And if you aim high, and if you aim for that peak, you will land amongst the stars. So do not sell yourself short in terms of your aspirations and your personal goals. So now, back to you. Question number 8. Put down 3 companies. I'm not asking you to put down 40. I think that would be too torturous here. But put down 3 companies that you want to target in your job acquisition. As people are filling that in, I'll tell you a little story about Marissa. So Marissa came to me and she was working at, I think it was Juniper Square, or I forget the name of the organization. She was a recruiter at a recruiting shop, like a headhunter type company. She was tired of working at second tier sort of organizations, and she really wanted to work at some of the top organizations in the world. She was a little hesitant to do so. She didn't think she was a material for it. I kind of told her bull dinkies. She was eligible. She had some concerns. She was neurodiverse in terms of her background, but she was driven. She was motivated. She had the right mindset. She had the right desire, and she had a growth mindset. I worked with her. I encouraged her, and she was able to get interviews at some top companies, and she wound up getting a great job at Netflix, where she's a program manager of talent acquisition now. I believe you can check her out on my profile. She's given me a recommendation on my profile, so you can see that on LinkedIn. She is now earning more money than she's ever earned before, and she's working at one of the companies that she's always aspired to work at. So aim high, do not sell yourself short. Component number 2, realistically leverage your strengths. So I heard this great podcast about 6 months ago now, where Reese Witherspoon was being interviewed by Adam Grant. I'm a big fan of Adam Grant. He's an organizational psychologist. He was interviewing Reese Witherspoon. I think she was an athlete early on in her life in high school, and she wanted to pursue that, but then she realized that she wasn't all that talented in athletics. What she decided to do instead is to chase her talents. And the advice that she gave to Adam Grant on this podcast is not to chase your dreams, but to chase your talents, which makes tons of sense if you think about from the hiring manager's perspective of who is looking to hire you, pay you a lot of money, and fill that open job. And as you think about the strengths that you have, Reese Witherspoon happened to be a fantastic actor, a great singer. I think she was in Walk the Line. She's phenomenal with her talents. Not everybody has her talents, but people have different talents, whether it's your functional talents, whether it's the level of seniority that you work with, whether it is impressive projects that you work on, whether it's schools that you've went to, whether it's titles that you've held, whether it's companies you've either worked at or worked with as a partner. Everybody has strengths that they can leverage, and they can really use those to get a great job. Everybody has strengths. So now question 9, what are your strengths? Put them in here. No one has ever left this question blank. I look at these often. People have great strengths here, whether it's organizations you've worked with, large projects that you've completed, you're really good at program management or whatever. Talk about some of your strengths here. Here's a good example. As you're filling that out, I'll tell you a little story about Marty. Marty came to me. He worked for Teach for America, great organization. I've hired lots of great people from Teach for America. Marty was looking to transition into the tech space, and he was concerned that he couldn't do that from a TFA, Teach for America background, but he was working in business analytics and insights at TFA, Teach for America. And so I worked with him to leverage those strengths, and he was able to leverage those strengths to get interviews at lots of companies. He was interviewing into final rounds with Salesforce. I think he had second rounds with Google, and he wound up getting a job with Block, which used to be Square, earning $68,000 more. So he leveraged his strengths to get into Block and is exceedingly happy there now. Component number 3. This one is probably the most important. If you forget everything else tonight, think about this, about building relationships. The goal of building relationships is to really get to know people, have conversations, build authentic, mutually beneficial relationships with people so that you can have informational interviews. And if you have not heard the term informational interview, this is essentially a conversation that you have with somebody at a company or in a role where you aspire to be, where you are seeking interview, you are seeking information, you are interviewing them, you are listening a hell of a lot more than you're talking about how they got to that company. What advice do they have for someone like you who is seeking to get to that company? And you are looking to learn and earn a referral. And when I say earn, I highly recommend people do not ask for a referral, because when you ask for a referral, almost everybody is going to say yes to your face that they'll give you a referral, and less than half will follow through. So you want to leave that conversation where they are so pleased with the conversation that they are like, hey, Tamika, if I can ever help with anything, let me know. And that is what I would call an earned referral, because they're willing to help you. If you have a hard time connecting with people, if you do not think that you have connections, everybody has a network. Everybody can build a network. Everybody can leverage that network. And what I'm showing you here is an example of, if I wanted to find someone who worked at Apple and I didn't know anyone at Apple, I would look for people that went to my university, in this case, Binghamton University, and then worked at Apple. If you look on LinkedIn, there's about 96 people that fit that criteria. I sent a note to this guy, Chintan. I sent a note to a few other people. I called him by his name, which is a very effective tool. Say when you say someone's name, they really appreciate that. I leveraged the commonality of Binghamton, and I ended with something whimsical there. And I got a response from Chintan. I actually never wound up following up with him. I just did this for an example, but I've met lots of people this way, and you can build relationships just by starting with a commonality. Outside of LinkedIn, there's plenty of ways that you can build and leverage relationships. You can re-engage with loose ties. So people that you went to high school with, college with, your first job you worked with. You can find people that are quoted in articles and reach out to them and give them props that, hey, I saw this great article written about you in Harvard Business Review. I was really impressed with it. I'd love to connect with you. You can leverage your alumni resources. You can meet people at conferences, at events. There's lots of ways to build and leverage relationships, and everybody has a network, whether it's friends, family, coworkers, and then you can build and leverage those and build and really invest in those in a mutually beneficial way, not just to use them, but to also help others out. Here's a story about Bharath. Bharath came to me. He went to school at University of Chicago, and he came to me and he was not getting interviews. And I was like, dude, have you tried to tap into your alumni network? And he's like, oh, I never thought about that. Well, he paid a lot of money, or I don't know if it was him or his parents or a combination or loans, but he paid a lot of money for that degree. And now he started to leverage that degree, not just his University of Chicago, but his past jobs to reach out to people. He built lots of conversations. It wound up getting him referred into Amazon. He got a job at Amazon. He was not happy there. He leveraged relationships as well, got a better opportunity at ADP. Now he's making $250,000 a year as a senior product manager there at ADP, all because of the relationships that he built and the referrals that he got into there. But then he also had to prepare for the interviews, and we'll talk about that shortly soon as well. So now we're going to talk a little bit about your network. There's a little bit of math coming up. Not too bad, I promise. It's not calc, it's not trigonometry, just some basic math, but there is some math coming up. Questions 10 through 14. We're going to dig into how much you are optimizing your network, and I'm going to be passing along some acronyms because I love acronyms. Question number 10. What year did you begin your first full-time job? And this could be the year that you graduated college, your undergrad college, or when you started your first professional job. Choose whichever one is more apt to you. There's no right or wrong answer here. In my case, I graduated Binghamton in 1995, but I really started working in 1996. So my number is 1996. So I started working in 1996. Then think about question 11. How many years of experience do you have? In my case, 1996 to 2023, I have 27 years of experience. Probably not too many people are as old as me, some people more, doesn't really matter. You take that 27 and you multiply that by 100 to get your LinkedIn optimal network score. So this is just a number I made up. You won't be able to Google this, you won't be able to find this. This is just a number to help you understand how much you're building and leveraging your network. So in my case, 2,700. If you have 8 years of experience, your Lion score is 800. Now, question number 13. Look at your LinkedIn profile and how many connections do you have? Not followers, but connections. So you click on my network, you look at connections, you put that number in. And don't worry about my number here. I'm using LinkedIn in a very different fashion than many of you. This is not a number that many people should have, but most people have numbers in the hundreds or thousands. So put down that number as question number 13. How many LinkedIn connections do you have? Now, I love acronyms. So we call this the Linus score, the LinkedIn Network Utilization Score. So take your number of connections in question 13 and subtract that from your Lion score. So if you had 2,000 connections and you've been working 18 years, 18 times 100 is 1,800, minus 1,800 is 200. So you take your connections, you minus your Lion, that's your Linus score. If you have a big negative number, that means that you are likely not building and leveraging relationships. And I'm not telling you to go connect with randoms, but it means that you probably have not been leveraging the opportunities in your past. If you have a big positive number, if you have a lot more connections in your Lion score, congratulations, you're probably someone that's building and leveraging network. If you are contacting them and continuing to have relationships with those individuals. So that's just an indicator of how well you are building and leveraging your network, which is critical for the job search, and I'll show you why shortly. Component number 4 now, working the system. Before you start playing the game, before you start going through the job search, you need to understand that recruiting the job search is essentially a game. It's a process that companies have established to hire talent, hire good enough talent. It doesn't have to be perfect talent. They just need good enough talent quickly and within budget. So you need to understand how this game is played so that you can backwards engineer and optimize to get more interviews, offers, and money. There are 3 primary points of entry into most jobs. You can cold apply. This is what most people do. You can go to LinkedIn, you can go to Glassdoor, you can go to Indeed, you can go to first-party job sites and just apply without any referrals. If you apply at the right place, at the right time for the right role, you might get your resume picked. But if not, you're often applying to stale jobs that have already been filled. Secondly, you could get recruited. So if you've gone to a good school, if you worked at good companies, if you have a job title that's matching the type of job that the company is recruiting for, or you've worked for a company or organization that that company is looking for, great. They may reach out to you on LinkedIn. Take all those interviews, but there's little in your control to fix that. You can do a little bit of optimizing your LinkedIn profile, but mostly that is a very passive channel, very reactive. The third channel, where only 7% of people utilize, but 40% of hires occur from, are referrals. And in my case personally, 24 out of my 29 jobs came because someone said, hey, Alan's a decent guy. I think you should chat with him. It doesn't mean I didn't need to prepare for the interviews, but that got the door open for me. Once you get into one of those 3 points of entry, then you go into what I call the job acquisition funnel. When you're at the top of the funnel in the yellow area, you are competing with hundreds of people and lots of noise out there. You want to get through that noise to the blue area. The blue area is talking to human beings. And then you talk to the recruiter, you move on to the hiring manager, to the loops. If you are deemed hireable, congratulations, you get an offer. But that is the funnel, and it is a bit of it's just a very painful process, because at every stage, the odds of you succeeding are not in your favor. Let me tell you a story about Wesley. Wesley was having challenges. He was unemployed at the time. He was a former freelancer and contractor. He had some work in his past, I think for IBM perhaps. He was having a really hard time getting interviews. He was submitting applications, not getting any responses. He was able to build his network within Salesforce and got somebody to refer him for a technical account manager job. Then he prepared, he worked his ass off once he got talking to a recruiter. So the referral got the recruiter to pay attention to Wesley. Then Wesley got a chance to speak to the recruiter. He was prepared for that, got past the recruiter screen, hiring manager, got an offer, and he was earning $132,000 more. He's still at Salesforce to this day. So question number 15, I want to understand how you are doing with this funnel. Question 15, and these are some quick fire ones. Some people know these numbers well. Sometimes you'll just have to estimate. But in the last 60 days, so think about the last 2 months, think back to that. How many applications have you submitted? Just like some people know this number off because they have spreadsheets and documentation. Other times, just take a wild guess based on your experience. How many applications have you submitted? Secondly, how many interviews have you gotten? And I would call it for a role. So if you got to the recruiter, to the hiring manager, to the final rounds, I would just call that one interview. But how many interviews for roles have you gotten over the last 60 days? Put that in. Question number 17, how many offers have you received? Many people coming to these sessions don't have many offers, but some people do, and you turn them down, and that's totally okay. But put down how many offers you have received over the last 60 days, the last 2 months. Now, let's diagnose what's going on. So for those of you that are not getting interviews, it's very likely that you're not getting applications in, you're not applying at the right sites at the right time for the right sort of roles, and you're not getting referrals. For people that are getting those applications in and but not getting the interviews, it means that you might be applying for the wrong jobs, and again, not getting those referrals. So you really need to understand where to apply, when to apply, what roles to apply for, and how to apply, ideally with referrals. And then finally, if you're getting lots of interviews and you're not getting offers, there are ways that you can prepare. There are ways that you can research. There are ways that you can break that down. And I'll be sharing with you shortly about how you can turn those interviews into offers. And to share a little story about me, last time I was looking for a job, this was when I was on my way out of Salesforce. I knew I wasn't going to be there for long. I didn't know if I was doing Kadima or going to get another job. I applied to 300 jobs. I got 47 interviews, 20 final rounds, 5 offers. But what that means is I got rejected 295 times. That's just how the process works. So it's like a war of attrition, and it's also that funnel that you have to think about. So you really need to take a methodical approach to get those interviews, offers, and more money. So component number 5, training and tenacity for interviews. So if you get that interview, congratulations, you got through to a human. And the positive side of interviews is they are very consistent. Everybody knows the negative side of interviews. There is an asymmetry of information. They're inefficient, they're biased, they're poorly conducted. But again, on the positive side, and I'll talk to you about that, they are damn consistent. Not only did I look for my job when I was leaving Salesforce, I've probably interviewed about 1,000 times in my career. I've also interviewed about 1,000 people. Interviews occur like this in about 90+% of times. First, you talk to the recruiter. The recruiter is assessing knockout factors. Are you within the right compensation level, the location, authorization, and can you do the job? If you get past the recruiter, usually a 30-minute conversation, you get to the hiring manager. The hiring manager is trying to assess two things. Can you do this job that I have open on my team? And can I manage you because I'm going to be your boss? If you get past the hiring manager, then you get to the loops or the panel or the on-site. Different companies call it different things. You will see that hiring manager again often, and you will be meeting with usually 4 to 5 people for 45 minutes to an hour each, where they will be doing a majority of behavioral-based questions. Like, tell me about a time you had to deliver exceptional sales results with minimal resources. And you need to answer that with the STAR technique: situation, task, action, result. I'm not going to go into tons of detail with that now, but if you do not know what behavioral-based interviewing is and you want to work for a decent company, Google that or check out some of my posts on LinkedIn. It's a skill that you need to learn, and it is learnable. In each one of those stages, there are 4 phases of the interview. Phase 1, rapport building. Because interviews are imperfect, because they are biased, you want to build rapport. You want people to like you. If they like you, they're going to be more positively inclined to give you a higher recommendation. Secondly, TMAY, or tell me about yourself or your narrative or walk me through your resume. Almost every interview has that, where you need to have that buttoned up, 3 minutes or less, telling them about yourself, why this company, why this role, and ideally ending with something whimsical or comical in nature to get them to smile. Again, building that rapport. Third, questions for you. This is about the majority of the interview, questions they are going to fire at you. You can very easily estimate the questions that they're going to ask you by looking at the job description, looking at your resume, feeding the job description into ChatGPT and predicting it, and also getting your STAR stories ready. But you need to be prepared for those, and they're very preparable. Fourth, questions from you to them. So almost every interview will say at the end, well, that's all the questions I have for you. What questions do you have for me? And you better not say, I don't have any. That's not what the interviewer is seeking. So you always come prepared with at least 3 questions per interviewer. You don't need to use those 3, but you never want to be going humana when they're asking you what questions you have for them. That's how every interview occurs. I shouldn't say every. I've had some interviews where they're just stress-based interviews and they just fire questions at you, or they just say, what questions do you have for me? But I would say 95+% of interviews go like this. So if you go through this meat grinder, AKA the job acquisition funnel, congratulations. Not only do you become some very yummy meat there, I don't know how yummy that is, but anyway, you become some disgusting looking meat there. Congratulations, you get the offer. And you should not be talking about money until this stage. And I'll tell you why shortly. But before you get that offer, get used to getting denied. Get used to getting ghosted. Get used to getting rejected. I told you before, I got rejected 295 times out of those 300 applications. 165 of those 300 applications, I have not heard back from yet. So that was in 2021. I don't think I'm ever hearing back from those companies. You may get rejected as much as 14,481 times. And you know who got rejected 14,481 times? One of the best basketball players in the history of the game, Kobe Bryant. He was not afraid to miss his shot, nor was LeBron, nor was Kareem, nor was MJ, nor was Will Chamberlain. I'm not even a big basketball fan, but hopefully people have heard of some of these best basketball players in the world. They also happen to be the people that have missed the most shots in the history of the game. They shake it off, they get back up there. It's part of the game. And again, recruiting it's not a very fun game. I'd much rather be playing basketball than interviewing, but essentially it is a game where you will miss a hell of a lot more times than you will make the basket. I'll tell you a story about Jackie here. Jackie worked with me. She worked with me for 7 months. And she got rejected from a lot of roles. She made it to the final round of BNY Mellon. She made it to the final round of Tableau. She made it to the final rounds of, I think it was American Express. I forget where. She was she was missing out on things because they went with an internal candidate, they went with someone who had slightly more relevant experience. She was getting dejected, but she continued on, she continued to persevere. And after 7 months and after countless rejections, she got a fantastic job at Dell, customer experience. She's still there today. And that's because she persevered and she didn't let rejection cause her to give up. So question number 18, over the last 60 days, thinking back on those jobs that you applied for and so forth, how many times have you been rejected or ghosted? And I'm curious if anyone has exceeded my 200. Now, people love money. I like money. Money got me this, well, got me to pay for my dog food, pay for my mortgage and all that. People like money. And the way that you get money is through high impact negotiation once you get the offer. So before we start here, Donna Summers here, a little blast from the past. Are you getting paid what you're worth? I think this is just a yes or no question. I think that I have a wrong question on this slide. And Natalie, if you can note down that we need to change the picture on this slide, but question 19 should be, are you getting paid what you're worth? Now, question 20. And I ask this if you're currently employed, and this will change the next question that you get if you're currently employed. So just put down if you're currently employed. And question 21, how much are you earning on an annual basis? And if you're not currently employed, looking back at your past job, what were you earning at your last job? And the reason why I ask this will be apparent shortly. So I'll take a little sip there so people can put down all those digits of numbers that they're earning. A question I get all the time from people is, well, how much should I be making? My answer is more. I don't know exactly how much you should make. People look at all these sites. They look at comparably.io. They look at levels.fyi, salary.com, Glassdoor. All these sites claim to tell you what you should be earning. There's also Blind. There's also Blind is an app. Fishbowl is an app. There's all these services where you can find out some information. But compensation is confusing and it is inconsistent across companies. There's different components of it between salary and bonus and equity, whether it's RSUs, restricted stock units for public companies or options for private companies. There's titles, there's PTO, paid time off. There's all these different confusing aspects, which I think companies intentionally do to confound the employee so that you never ask for more because you're just damn confused. If you do rely on any of these sites to look at your compensation, buyer beware. So when I was at Salesforce, I was a level 9 as a director there at Salesforce. I looked at what compensation was for level 9s in New York for directors. Levels.fyi said between 90,000 and 428,000. First off, that's a ridiculously wide range. I don't know how helpful that is. Secondly, the top end of that range, if I believe that, I would have never fought for more. And this is what I made at Salesforce. This was my last W-2. I'm not showing this to brag, but I'm showing this to not get overly focused on all these sites that claim to tell you what you should earn because it's frankly wrong. The 515, that was my W-2. That was a compensation that I got before the taxes came, but that was what paid my mortgage, what pays my kids' tuition, paid my loan back. The 205,956, those were the RSUs, restricted stock units that vested that year alone. So people undervalue the stock and they get confused by all of this stuff. So forget about that stuff. Just look at the W-2, what pay, or for different countries, there might be your tax form will look different, but just look at the cash that the company gives you that you can transact on vacations, on charity, on wherever you want to spend your money. Question number 22, subtract how much you want to earn. And that was early on in today's workshop of what you want to earn from what you're earning now. So if you're earning now $125,000 and you said you want to earn 150,000, 150 minus 125 is $25,000. Put that number in here. And likely you are anchoring. And anchoring means that people are anchoring on what they're currently getting paid or a number in their head. And it usually anchors you low, especially if you're underpaid. And because of that, never talk about compensation. You do not have as much information as a company. Deflect and defer that conversation and do not tell them what you want to earn. And the companies cannot legally ask you what you're earning now in 19 states and most countries. And 3 ways to deflect and defer the conversation. This is a slide that a lot of people often post on LinkedIn. So if you want to be in the running for that free LinkedIn review, this is a great slide to take a screenshot and post. These are the 3 ways to deflect and defer the conversation. If you're asked how much you want to earn or how much you're looking to make in this job at Stripe, what you tell them is, hey, I just want to get paid in line and scope with the impact of the role. If you're at Pfizer and they press further, you're like, hey, I'm really excited to work at Pfizer. I don't expect compensation to be a concern. If Bank of America pushes harder on you, you just tell them, hey, I'm not really sure how Bank of America compensates. Can you explain that to me? Jot it down, tell them that you'll get back to them. You'll never need to get back to them. Deflect and defer until you get the offer. And the reason why, and especially if you are a woman, a person of color, an underrepresented population, you are most likely not getting paid what you are worth. And what you see here is the US Department of Labor. It's similar across the world. If you are Black, you are getting paid 76 cents on the dollar. If you are a woman, you're also getting paid 76 cents on the dollar. If you're at the intersection of those two, I'm sure you're getting paid less than that 76 cents on the dollar. So be cautious that the number that you've gotten paid in the past is likely informing what you think you're worth, and it's likely underselling yourself. Here's a story about Susan. That's not her real name. She didn't want her name used. She worked with me. She left American Express, got a job at Google. Their first offer they made her was for $400,000, which sounds like a lot of money. But because she deflected and deferred and did not talk about the compensation, we were able to get her another $143,000 just through negotiation alone. So I'm telling you, do not reveal your cards to the company. They want you to, do not comply. So stay tuned. Q&A is coming up. I'm going to get to that. So now, as you have questions, put it in the Q&A chat box. DJ is diligently riffing through those and going to be my question asker soon. So put those questions in. Question number 23. Put down here, what are your career goals? And I can tell you what this answer is, only you can. Question 24. What's been holding you back from achieving those goals? And be honest here. And again, you will get a copy of these answers, so you can look back on this months to come and ideally see a lot of progress that you've made. Here are lots of reasons that people give of why they're not achieving their goal. They've jumped around too much. They don't want to move again. There's ageism, there's racism, there's biases out there. I don't have a strong network. So there's lots of reasons. The most common answer I get is, I'm not ready to do it now. I'm going to wait till the end of the summer. I'm going to wait till next year. So there is an adage, a Chinese proverb, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is now. So this is a Brooklyn proverb from me. The best time to look for a job was 6 months ago, because usually it takes people about 6 months to find a job. The second best time is right now. So question number 25, how quickly are you ready to make a change? Put this down, it's up to you. Then as you think about that, realize every minute that you wait, every month that you wait, you are leaving about $8,000 to $10,000 on the table. And that is based on stats that I've looked at, based on my own research, based on my own information. You're leaving about $8,000 to $10,000 on the table for every month that you wait. So that's a lot of the information. Now I'm going to share a little bit about how Kadima helps you, and then we will get to the Q&A. As I said, the recruiting process, actually need to change this. The system is not broken. It's actually working as the companies intend, but it is broken for you as a candidate. It's a really shitty experience. It's really rejecting. You don't get feedback. You don't know why you're not getting the role. It's broken from the candidate perspective, but it's working damn fine for the companies. They don't have trouble finding talent. What I shared with you today is the growth framework, establishing goals, realistically assessing your strength, building that outreach, working the system, training in tenacity for those interviews. And finally, and again, last and definitely not least, the high impact negotiations that will get you that money. Also, how Kadima helps is to give people guidance and metrics to hold themselves accountable to. And what I call it is the 40-30-20-10-5 rule. If you establish 40 target companies, if you reach out to 30 people on a weekly basis, if you develop 20 star stories to be prepared for those interviews, those behavioral-based questions, if you apply to 10 companies per week, and if you have 5 informationals per week, I can guarantee that you will get a better job. Also, what we provide at Kadima is not just slides out of order, but we also provide accountability. We provide care, access, feedback, and unrivaled insight. What you get with Kadima is you get one-on-one sessions with me. You get monthly one-on-one sessions with me where we talk about strategy, we talk about resume. Resumes are actually overrated, so we talk very little about resume, but more about mindset, more about how to get past the interview, how to prepare for the interview, how to negotiate effectively. You get that accountability and support in twice a week group coaching sessions. Not only does everybody come with questions, but that's a great opportunity for me to make sure that folks are achieving their 40-30-20-10-5 and identifying challenges and obstacles so that we can course correct quickly. You also get introductions to my network. I am not going to give you my LinkedIn password, but what I will do is gladly make introductions. I will first teach you how to fish because it's important for you to build those relationships. They will be more effective for you, but I am more than happy to introduce you to my network. And so is DJ, so is the Kadima team. I did that before I started Kadima. I'm going to do it after I'm done with Kadima, which I don't think I'll be done with for a while. We also provide a course, a digital course with 8 hours of video, templates, scripts, documents, everything that you need to do so that you can follow this method that I'm quickly going through. I know I talk quickly. I'm a New Yorker, but you can watch it on 0.5 speed. You can watch it at 2 times speed, your choice, but all the information is in that digital course. You also get resume reviews. You get LinkedIn reviews. We help you with your targeted list. Interview prep 24/7. Actually, I got to change that. Not 24/7 email support, 17/7, because I do sleep 7 hours a night usually. We help you negotiate your offer. That's one of my favorite parts. And you get a 30-day money back guarantee. With that, you get results like this. These are the results that we have through the end of June. On average, it takes our clients 3.56 months to get a job, earning $124,000 more after. And the negotiations alone, we get an average of $43,000 more. And we're on a mission. So we're not just on a mission to help you get that job now, but really to accelerate your long-term career trajectory. And this is an illustrative chart of what we're trying to do is get you a job that pays you a lot more now, but also puts you on a long-term trajectory so that you are earning more over the course of your career. Just like job acquisition is a learnable skill, career acceleration is a learnable skill as well. And we teach you how to accelerate your career. We just don't throw you into the deep end because you're going to get overwhelmed with OKRs, with V2 moms, with employee relations. If you ever deal with employee relations, ER, reach out to me. That is an area in HR that means that they are trying to fire your ass. So be careful about ER, whatever company you're in. QBRs, quarterly business reviews. There's going to be all these challenges in adapting to a new company. So we don't just throw you into the deep end. I just want to tell you a quick story about me. When I joined Google, I left American Express, joined Google. I earned $62,000 more, 37% increase in my compensation. I got to bring my dog to work. I got to wear jeans to work. They fed me delicious food. It was the worst 6 months in my life. I got clinically depressed. I got to the door at Google. This is the door at Google in New York. This is me smiling several years later. But within those first 6 months, I would get to Google's offices. I would not physically be able to open the door, not because the door was too heavy, but I was burdened with imposter syndrome, thinking that I was doing a really crappy job. I would walk around the city block, which you see here as a sky view from Google Maps. The Google building in New York is one of the largest footprint buildings in all of New York City. To walk around there, it's a 15-minute lap. Sometimes I would take 2 laps because I could not physically go into the door. So I don't want you to be in that situation. I want to make sure that you have that support that you need once you get into the company. And I want to make sure that limiting beliefs do not hold you back from the potential that you have. I don't want you to think that you're not Google material, that you're not Goldman Sachs material, that you're not Moderna material. There are people that get into those companies that are a hell of a lot qualified than me, a hell of a lot less qualified than you. You can do it if you don't limit yourself with some beliefs that have typically held people back. So we support you once you get into the company as well. So now, if you want to work with me, and we are getting the question soon, I promise you that. So if you want to work with me, this is what you do. First off, like I showed some numbers before, I know people like some qualitative testimonials. You can look at some testimonials here. You can also go to my LinkedIn page where you see about 60 different testimonials and recommendations. And we offer a 30-day money-back guarantee. So we stand by everything here, but we fill up fast. So we only take 10 clients per month so that I can provide the right support and guidance and make sure that you are set up for success. So we only take 10 new clients per week. And if you submit the form and say you want to work with us, you will meet with DJ or you work with Leah Hudson. So once you say that you want to work with us, you'll talk to either DJ or Leah to make sure that this is a good fit for you. We don't want to sell you something. We don't want you to sign up for something that is not a good fit for you. We don't want to waste your money and we don't want to waste our time. So we want to make sure that you're resilient, that you have a growth mindset, that you have a bias to action, you're hold yourself accountable. We will help hold you accountable, but you need to do a lot of this on your own as well. It's like going to the gym with a trainer. They're not going to lift the weights for you. So to lock in one of the 10 spots, you need to apply now. And for a special time, we are actually raising our rates in August. But for people that get their applications in by July and have meetings in July, we are throwing in 5 special editions. So we're bringing on additional coaches to support you with LinkedIn makeovers, resume reviews that tell me about yourself, so that those monthly sessions with me are focused on strategy, mindset. We can also go over those things, but I find that people like to talk about specific challenges that they're having. And then the more tactical things, they're working with coaches. So we're throwing in 5 additional opportunities to meet with Kadima coaches to focus on those areas: mock interviews, star stories, preparation, to tell me about yourself. The cost of working with Kadima and with me on a personalized basis is $6,000. So it is steep for some. We are getting people a 20 times return on their investment. I am not guaranteeing these results. These are averages. We've gotten people as much as, I think, $600,000 more, as little as $5,800 more. But we do get people more money quickly, confidently, and with lots more insight. So now that you heard about the job acquisition coaching, do you want to sign up? No pressure. Put that down now if you want to sign up, and we will quickly look at your application, be in touch within the next, I think, 12 to 24 hours. If you want to apply, scan here, submit it. Again, this is what you get with it. You get one-on-one coaching sessions with me. You get the 2-time group coaching sessions. You get 5 meetings with Kadima career specialists on those specific topics to focus and certify you in those. And we're not giving you a certification, but we're going to tell you that your resume is in good shape. Stop fretting about your resume, go forth and apply. Negotiation services, you get the course, unlimited email access to me, and of course the resume and LinkedIn profile review. Not everybody can afford it. Not everybody is ready to invest that amount of money. So we also do offer our digital course for 90% more affordable, $597. If you want to start with a digital course, you can always do that and you can upgrade. So if that's where you want to start, we have a special offer there for $597 just for the digital course. And before we get to the questions, I promise we're getting the questions. Final reminder, get one of those 5 free LinkedIn profile reviews. So if you learned something tonight, if you learned something new, you took a good picture of DJ here or me or something on the slide, ideally, post it on LinkedIn, tag my name, do the hashtag own your career, and you will be entered into one of these 5 spots for a free LinkedIn profile review with me. Now we're going to do the questions for real now.
Thank you for all the questions. I think we certainly have almost 70. So one question that was a common theme was just about ageism. So people that are older, how should they think about their career search, and how does Kadima help them with that effort?
So ageism is, I find, often more perceived than actual. So I'm going to be 50 in November. I have no problem going back and getting a job if I need to. When I worked at Salesforce last, I reported into a 40-year-old woman, who reported into a 57-year-old man, who reported into a 62-year-old man, who reported into like a 52-year-old man. And all these men and women were white, by the way, who reported into Mark Benioff, who I believe is 54 years old. All those people are pretty old in my book, or at least compared to me. Age is also a mentality. Age can work for you. It can give you the sense of business maturity. You might get larger scope and larger managerial opportunity. It can work against you if you choose to let it do so. I hired an individual contributor on my team, and I see when I was at Tableau, he was, I think, 58 or 60. I don't know. Like, he didn't tell me his age, but looking at his college graduation, and he looked a little on the older side. He was hired by me. He was a fantastic IC, individual contributor. He told me during the interview, which I advised him not to say this in the future, is he's looking to retire at the next company. I don't think, but that wasn't a bad thing per se, but he was saying he was looking to retire in a few years. I told him not to say that in particularly, because you don't want to have a short gap in your tenure, but age is what you make it, and it can work for you. If you choose to let it work against you, it will work against you. And there's nothing else you can do about it. Your age is your age, unless you're going to change your birth certificate or get Botox or something like that. Accept your age, lean into it. It gives you maturity, it gives you experience, and it does offer lots of opportunity.
Another common question, can you talk about, is there a need to have customized resumes and or cover letters for each application?
Do not waste your time on a cover letter unless you're applying to a small company. If you're applying to a large company that's getting lots of resumes, they are now reading your cover letter. I've looked at 10,000 resumes in my career. I've probably read about 10 to 15 cover letters. And the only one that I ever hired was Natalie, who's on the call here, because of a cover letter. So she wrote a good email to me. It wasn't even a cover letter, it was just an email. Don't spend time on cover letters. They do not work. If you want to spend time on a cover letter, just put it through ChatGPT, but I'm telling you, people aren't reading it. In terms of the customized resume, what I generally advise people to do is lean into your strength, play to your strength, so you don't need to customize your resume. If you're applying for a couple of different jobs, you may want to have 2 different versions. But if you think about it, most people are looking at your LinkedIn anyway. They're not looking at your resume, and everybody only has one LinkedIn. So play to your strength, lean into your strength, get your resume in objectively perfect shape, subjectively good enough, and then focus on the networking, focus on those referrals.
Perfect. Can you talk a little bit about compensation, especially what do you do when recruiters force you to give a number, or the system forces you to give a number? And what if you get a lowball offer?
So on the question about compensation, I went over that before. There's 3 ways to respond to that. I want to get paid fairly and equitably in line with the scope of the role. I'm really excited to work at Chase. I don't think compensation is going to get in the way. And please tell me about how Novartis compensates employees. I'm not familiar with it. And jot it down and tell them you'll get back to them. We'll never need to get back to them. And in terms of on applications, if they ask for compensation, sometimes you don't need, sometimes it's optional field. You don't need to put anything in there. Sometimes you can put words in there, and if so, write negotiable. If they have data validation that requires a number, just put a single digit number in. I like the number 1. You can put in whatever number you want. And if you are a good candidate, the recruiter will reach out to you, and that number is not going to set you back. But if you put in a number of $125,000 and you're applying for a job that was going to pay $150,000 to $200,000, they're going to offer you $150,000, if that, maybe $125,000. So do not sell yourself short.
And so just building off that, 2 extra questions. Any other feedback if it's in certain states where the salary has to be listed in the job description? And should you pay attention to the salary listed on jobs?
So in a lot of states now, I think New York, Colorado, California, some other countries, they need to disclose compensation, although I'm seeing some companies not doing it. So I don't know how enforced it is. Those numbers are inaccurate. Those numbers are not consistent from company to company, and those ranges could be absurd. There was a role a week ago that I looked on Netflix the compensation band was $100,000 to $700,000. How helpful is that? When I was at Salesforce, we listed the salary for a job. It was like $132,000 to $156,000 in Colorado. What that failed to do is show what the job would have been in New York or California, which would have been a hell of a lot more. And it failed to talk about the bonus, and it failed to talk about the RSUs, the equity. Do not rely on those numbers. What you can do once you get to the offer stage, you can use that band that they publicly disclosed to your advantage. So if they set a band of 148 to 172, and they're offering you compensation of 148, you should go back to them and say, hey, it says 148 to 172. I have all these years of experience and I'm living in this area. I want the high end of the range. So do not use it to opt yourself out of a role. Only use it positively in the end once you get the offer for negotiation leverage.
Can you talk about who Kadima is appropriate for? We have some people that are recent graduates and some other folks that are C-level folks. How do you think about that spectrum?
So I've worked with clients, seniors in college, to people earning $1.5. I say I work with people from seniors in college to senior executives. The process that we're following here, and I do tweak it based on the type of companies that you're targeting. So sometimes if you're targeting very like a small number of companies, or like a company that has a small number of roles, like a private equity shop or a baseball team or something like that, there's a slightly different strategy that we employ. But the strategy works for seniors in college, early professionals, mid professionals, senior level professionals. We've done it time and time again. This has worked for me since I was 18 till my last job at Salesforce when I was 49, at earning $515,000. And I've helped people get more money. One of our clients just got a job for $1 million.
This one's actually come up a couple times tonight or this morning, depending on where you are. ADHD is a real thing. You know, I'm sure people are dealing with a lot of things. Is it ever appropriate to speak about that in the interview process or things like that?
So I think the question is about ADHD. My dad has ADHD. My daughter has ADHD. I think I probably have ADHD myself. That's why I have my chat off here. I would not disclose that. There's no benefit of disclosing it during the interview process. It can only negatively hurt you. There are some companies that are very open to making accommodations, and you can disclose that if you want, but you have to realize that you are not sure who you're dealing with, even though companies are not legally allowed to discriminate based on things like ADHD or neurodyslexia, neurodiversity, or things of that nature. Some people will do that. I would not disclose it. Once you get the offer, then once you start, or then you can disclose that information. It's also if you're pregnant. Do not disclose that you're pregnant, because companies are not allowed to discriminate based on pregnancy. But people will discriminate on pregnancy if they see it like they're not legally allowed to. So do not disclose it. Once you start, you should be clear with your manager that you need some special accommodations for that. And the American Disability Act and other countries also have rules in place where you will be protected for that.
Thank you. Next question.
Someone just said that they've been disclosing on their application. So there are two different areas where you can disclose information in your application. First off, I would never disclose disability on an application, just because early on in an application before it gets submitted, and this is hard for people to understand. So when in doubt, don't disclose it. But there's some information that goes right to government agencies that recruiters and the hiring managers do not see. And there's some information that goes to the hiring manager and the recruiter. So when you indicate your race and disabilities, and if you're a military vet, that goes into a different database that recruiters and hiring managers do not have access to, but the companies are audited on a aggregate level. So you probably did not hurt yourself by saying that on the application, but I would not say it verbally to anybody. And when in doubt, you don't need to disclose it. Just choose not to answer.
Got it. Can you talk a little bit about the LinkedIn Open to Work green frame? How does it work?
I love that question. So I've done presentations on that before. So there's two different options on LinkedIn. You can make yourself open to work, disclose to all 930 million people on LinkedIn, and you have that green circle that says hashtag open to work. Some people choose to put that on. Like, I'm of mixed feelings whether you should put that on or not, and I can go on and on about that. Basically, my answer on that is if you feel comfortable putting that on, put it on. But if you are currently employed at a company, I would not put open to work on with a green circle unless you're okay getting fired, because you're going to show extreme disloyalty there by doing that. There's another option, which I encourage everybody to always have on their LinkedIn profile. There's another one that says open to work, only disclose to recruiters. So there's only a small subset of the 930 million people on LinkedIn that have a recruiter's license, a recruiter LinkedIn license, which costs about $9,000 a year. If you check that off, only recruiters can see it, and it excludes recruiters from your company. So if you're working at CVS Health and you say you're open to work for recruiters only, every recruiter outside of CVS Health will be able to see that you're open to work and what roles you're looking for. I encourage everybody to keep that on all the time. ABL, always be looking.
Alan, can you talk a little bit about being nervous to connect to people on LinkedIn, and what if no one responds to you on LinkedIn?
People will respond. I'm telling you, people will respond. A lot of people won't respond. So our method is we have people reach out 30 reach outs a week, and we give you the scripts and the templates on how to do that. Only about 10 to 15 people will accept. Of those 10 to 15 people that will accept, then you say, thank you so much for accepting. I'd love to chat with you and get some advice. Only about 3 to 5 of those people will say, sure, I'd love to talk to you. But those 3 to 5 out of that initial 30 are self-selecting in to be more helpful people, to be more generous people, to be more likely to be your referral. So you will get a lot of ghosting, you will get a lot of non-replies, but you will get a lot of responses and replies as well. I can tell you it's worked a number of times for me. It works for our clients. If you reach out in the right way, do not forward an unsolicited resume. People do not like that. Do not ask someone for a favor right away. People do not like that. But if you warm them up, it's kind of like if you're going up to somebody in a bar, you don't ask them to marry them at first, but you talk to them, you talk about the weather. Oh, do you come here often? I don't know if people even pick people up in bars anymore. It's probably all Tinder or something like that. But I'm old again. I used to pick people up in bars. But there are ways to build relationships and get those connections, and people will respond to you. I'm telling you, they will.
How should contract roles be viewed?
Contract role, like I tell people, always be better. So you should think about what your current role is and what that contract role looks like. And if that contractor role is better than your current situation, whether it's unemployed or whether it's a really shitty situation, you consider that contract role. You also need to be aware of what your family situation is. So is there a partner that you're with that is providing benefits for you, or are you paying for your benefits? That's something to take into account. Is it a contract role at an organization that gets you kind of on the inside so you can start networking there? So there's lots of things to consider, but you always look at a role compared to what your current situation is, or from a negotiation perspective, your BATNA, your best alternative to a negotiated agreement versus the new opportunity. You compare those two and you choose the better one.
How do you make time to manage this process?
So in order to work with me, I ask people if you can invest 10 hours per week. So it's kind of like going to a personal trainer. You're not spending 10 hours with me. You're not spending 10 hours with DJ. What you're doing is you're following a plan, a robust plan that includes 5 informational interviews, which is about 2.5 hours a week. You're looking on the right sites at the right time for the right roles, and you will be getting interviews. So you do need to think about investing about 10 hours of your week to the job search, to the proactive job search. If you don't have that time now, great opportunity to do the digital course, start learning the digital course at your own pace, and maybe upgrade to the coaching at a later point. But it does take time to be proactive to achieve that job that you want. They're not going to come to you. If they were coming to you, you probably wouldn't be sitting here with me on 10 o'clock at night or 9:30 at night.
What do you think about the LinkedIn skills section?
It's bullshit. The skill set, if If anybody gives me their profile, I will endorse you for all the skills. Recruiters don't look at those. Nobody looks at them. There's no validation. There's no calibration on those. Doesn't matter. What does matter on the LinkedIn profile a little bit more are recommendations. So recommendations are things where someone will actually write something kindly on your behalf. They have to be connected to you. And those things recruiters and hiring managers do look at. Not all, but I know probably more than 25 to 50% of recruiters and hiring managers will look at those recommendations and to get a sense of somebody, not to decide if they're going to hire them or not, but once it gets to the final stage, as they're starting to think about which candidate to choose, they will look at those recommendations. And I'm not suggesting that people get tons of recommendations. The number I've heard from recruiters and hiring managers is somewhere between 3 and 7. I don't have data to support that, but skills, bullshit, don't waste your time on it. You might as well put them on there, and I will gladly endorse you for every skill that you want me to endorse you for.
Can you talk about some best practices for people who've been unemployed for a while?
For people that have been unemployed, first off, you can go to our YouTube channel, kademacareers.com. We have a good presentation called Layoff to Payoff, where I talk about some of the specific tactics you should take about someone that's laid off. But if you're laid off, basically these tactics work whether you're unemployed or you're employed. It is more urgent for you often if you're unemployed to embark on these tactics, and you actually have more time to dedicate to the job search. So that's a positive. The negative is you're not getting income and you're under a lot more stress and so forth. But these same practices work, but I would double down a little bit on the outreach. So instead of having 5 informational chats a week, when I've lost my job, and I've lost my job 5 times in my career, I would be having sometimes 23 informational chats in a week. And I'm not saying you need to go 23. That's kind of crazy and ridiculous, but you can increase from those 5 informationals that I'm recommending to 8 to 10 because you have more time on your hands. So build those relationships, invest more in relationships.
Can you still get into a big company, or should you?
Hell yeah. When I got into Facebook, I was unemployed. When I got into Tableau, I was unemployed. You can definitely get hired. So you don't need to tell them why you were terminated. The company is not allowed to ask. Well, company is allowed to ask why you left, but there's an internal narrative of what the truth is, and there's an external narrative of what you decide to share with the company. And when the companies that's hiring you does a background check, and if they wanted to add, like when I got hired at Andela, which is a startup after Google, I did not tell them that I got my ass fired and they walked me out the building. I told them that I chose to leave because I wanted to work at startups. And the background check that they did said that I worked at Google for those 5.5 years, and the titles that I told them I did indeed work at Google, but Google will not tell them my compensation. I told Andela my compensation because it worked in my favor, and Google will not say why I left.
If you have recruiters contacting you, especially from obscure agencies, but for big companies, how do you think about managing that?
Take every interview. Unless you have no time on your hands, take every interview. Every interview is an opportunity for you to learn, to practice, to build your network, and maybe the opportunity will pan out. I'm very cautious. I'm very skeptical about external recruiters, AKA headhunters, AKA executive search companies. You need to understand, people reach out to me all the time and say, are you a recruiter? No, I'm not a recruiter. Recruiters work for the company. Recruiters get paid commission based on getting people hired. They don't give a shit if they get DJ the job, Natalie the job, Alan the job. They don't really care who takes that job. But when someone gets that job, that executive search firm, that recruiter, gets paid 10 to 33% of that compensation. So they just, not out of your pocket, not out of the candidate's pocket, the company is paying them. So take every recruiter call, but don't rely on a recruiter to be your friend. They're like a real estate broker. They are getting commission based on closing a sale, and a sale is getting a butt in the seat.
If you've seen that a job is posted and it either has a ton of applicants or it's been posted for a very long time, should you still apply?
If it's out there, yes, you should, but you should follow a system so that you get ahead of it next time, because jobs that are stale jobs that have been out there 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks are going to be a hell of a lot less likely for your resume to be seriously considered, because there's already resumes in there. They're probably already going through the interview process. So the process that we use here at Kadima is to make sure that you have that list of target companies and you are checking those companies' sites, those first party sites, not Glassdoor, not Indeed, not LinkedIn, but google.com/jobs, Pfizer.com/jobs, nameyourcompany.com/jobs. You're going to those sites once a week because you want to get the jobs when they're fresh, before other people are in there and before other people are going through the interview process, before the horse has left the stable.
Perfect. A couple more questions. A lot of people here want to pivot to a different type of role. Any recommendations on how to do that?
Yes, pivoting is totally possible. I've pivoted 6 times in my career. We have lots of clients that have pivoted, but you do need to rely on your strength. So you need to have some sort of common bond. So when I went from venture capital to baseball, what I leveraged was my analytics and my finance skills to get into the front office of the New York Mets minor league affiliate, the Brooklyn Cyclones. When I pivoted from finance to marketing, I leveraged my finance and analytical skills to work for American Express in the marketing side. So you need to have some commonality, some strength that you can leverage that then you can deploy towards this company or organization that you need to think from the hiring manager's perspective. What unique skill and strength do you have that will be valuable to them? And build relationships, build that network so that someone understands that your skills are transferable to this other job or company or industry.
3 last questions. It seems like referrals are getting direct to the hiring manager with the resume is the most effective. Is there ever an instance where going through an online application is better?
Never better. No, online application will work if you do it at the right place at the right time for the right sort of job. But if you get a referral into that hiring manager, that's definitely going to work at least as good and mostly better. And you can do both. You can get the application in, and after that application is in, if you haven't heard back, or even if you have heard back, you can then go for the referral. So a challenge I've seen and a mistake that I see people do all the time is they're like, oh, I see this great role at Google, but first let me try to find someone to refer me. And they take a week or 2 to find someone to refer them. Meanwhile, the job's already been interviewing for and they've missed the boat. So get the app in. If you don't have a referral, then build the network. So next time you see that job at Google, you get the referral.
Got it. Last 2 questions. What if you don't have a target company, but rather a target company type? For example, I'm interested in not early stage startups, but more growth stage, innovation, FANG type. Does that fit within the framework of Kadima?
I don't know who's going to hire you. Like, you need to define the companies. You need to define those companies. So you can look at, hey, who are some early stage growth companies in the fintech space? You can use ChatGPT for that. You can use Google for that. But you need to identify companies. That vagueness of, I want to work for early stage growth company, like who, like, I don't understand who's going to hire you. You need to, like, if you say, I want an early stage growth company, okay, let me look at Stripe. Well, Stripe's not that early stage, but I don't know any OpenAI. I don't know if that's an early stage growth company. That is an early stage growth company, but you need to define those companies because companies hire you and people within those companies are the ones that make the decision on you. So you need to define those goals, and then you need to build those relationships within those companies that are going to hire you and are going to pay your paycheck.
Cool. Last question. Why do you do this?
Great question. I've worked for 21 companies, 29 jobs for 25 years. I've worked for 38 bosses. Very few bosses have given a shit about me and my career. Probably about 5 or 8 have. I've always given a shit about people and their career. I've always done this for fun. I've always helped people. When I was at Google, I got 9 people referred into Google. I referred 50 people, only 9 got the job. I like this. And I got tired of getting fired. I got fired at Google. I got fired at Salesforce. I got fired at Facebook. I got fired at Andela. I got fired at venture capital. The reason why I get fired is because I don't like the bullshit, hypocrisy, and the politics that occur. But I also appreciate the value that it provided me. I appreciate the stability that it gave me. I appreciate that it allowed me to build up a nest egg that I can invest in this company now. I appreciate that while I had young kids at home, I could check out at 5 or 6 o'clock, some companies 9 or 10 o'clock, and spend time with my family. So I want to help people succeed. I also want to help people that do not have the insight and the guidance and are listening to a lot of BS and hypocrisy that doesn't exist. And there is a better way. It makes me really happy when I get my clients a great job, when I help support people, even if they're not my client, if they're my friends, it causes me happiness. It brings me more joy than pretty much anything outside of maybe a Reese's Pieces sundae at Friendly's.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for the questions. I'm sorry I didn't get to all of them. I think there's probably about 100 or so.
And also, please post something on LinkedIn, tag me, do hashtag own your career. We're giving out those 5 free LinkedIn profile reviews. And if you do want to work with us, we have 10 spots open. DJ and Leah, I might dig in on some of those conversations too. We'll be there. So we want to help you own your career, accelerate your career, and have a lovely night. Bye-bye.